1 year ago, I stood before this conference for the first time to speak on the financial services industry and the way that the European Union is planning and plotting to destroy it. I was deeply concerned at the time to speak for you as a lawyer working for a hedge fund in the City of London in the biggest banking crisis of our time, that I would be, despite being called Woolfe, that I might be something like going the lamb to the slaughter. But I need not have worried. You listened intently. You shared my concerns, debated passionately, chided me in good humour, but more than anything, you welcomed me with a warm embrace. And so in joining UKIP, I found my home, and together we have a just cause. And what a year it has been. Europe is in the midst of the financial crisis, brought on by a political project doomed to failure based on an economic model doomed from the start. And UKIP warned about that. Millions of Europeans are now impoverished because of politicians' greed and stupidity. Millions are out of work. Thousands are losing their businesses. Families are under pressure. The elderly left wanting. Nation-states are bankrupt. One after another we watch Portugal, Ireland, Greece seek out billions of bailouts, and then Greece seek it out again. The peoples of those countries are paying a painful price by losing their independence and sovereignty to an unelected, uncaring, and undemocratic EU. But they're not alone, conference. We have seen a disaster in this coalition. They said together we would make Britain stronger and fairer. That the coalition is a good thing. Almost a beautiful thing. Well, I know what the coalition stands for. Wait for this. It's a couple of arrogant, lying, idiotic traitors ignoring our nation. They are arrogant in ignoring the pleas of the National Trust, English heritage, the campaign for protection of rural England, millions of the people in this country who love our countryside, and UKIP, who have said that the proposed planning laws will turn our green and pleasant land into a grey and concrete hell. They have lied about tuition fees, putting millions of our children into future debt. And they have lied about the benefits of wind farms, they have lied about being the parties of law and order, and they have lied about their dedication to our wonderful armed services. They are idiotic to believe that the decommissioning of our aircraft carriers, scrapping the Harrier jump jets, or creating a European army will make this country safer and protected. And they are traitors when they say, as David Cameron did in the Select Committee only a few days ago, that it is in Britain's best interest to be in the EU, and that he welcomed the idea that there should be a country called the United States of Europe. Well, that was the mildest form that I was doing when I was throwing things at the television. But it's also been a year in the Middle East. And what wonderful sights have we seen there. We've seen young people and old alike bonded together in the firm conviction that to gain the most elusive and the most important of all those basic human rights, that of freedom. On the streets of Cairo and Tripoli, we see the joy in the faces as they celebrate victory. But we've also seen the dark side of what a powerful elite will try to do to prevent freedom being given to their people. We've seen the vestiges of power exalt brutality and rain it onto their people. We've seen the murder and death of innocents simply seeking to be able to speak as freely as I am speaking here today to you. But despite such brutality, the youth of the Middle East fought bravely and won that freedom. And I take hope from that. And I believe that we, in this conference, in this party, should draw the great strength in their endeavours when we are fighting for our own freedoms. And it was a marvellous year for UKIP, was it not? What an absolute tremendous year. Paul Nuttall succeeding as he did in bringing the message to Oldham. Jane Collins, fantastic, second place. Councillors being elected in the country. 7% now in the polls. Fear riding in the face of the Conservative Party, concern in the Labour Party, and the Liberal Democrats deeply worried that they are going to continue to stay in 3rd and 4th place. And it was also a wonderful year for me. Not only was I asked to become the spokesperson for the City of London and Financial Services for UKIP, I also got married. And I think Fiona... wife is probably more embarrassed by what I'm saying now than anything that we could ever do. But having joined UKIP, I've been asked why. Why did you join? It's only a single-issue party. All you want to do is get out of the EU. And I said, well, we are much more than that. We know our country's history, and we know that to give the powerful an inch, they will take a mile. We believe in our country and its people, and we have firm principles which have brilliantly been laid out by Paul Nuttall in the party statements of principles, which I hope you've received at conference. We believe in our national sovereignty, and that democracy is control of society by the whole of the people in that society, and that tyranny is control of society by a small political class. Because we know the importance of the vote, because it was hard won, and lives were lost to gain them. Let's take it back at the history of Britain. We pay homage to the Nottingham Pentridge Rising and the Manchester Blanketeers, who in the early 1800s were beaten and 500 deported to Australia simply for asking for the vote. We remember the 11 killed and 140 injured in Manchester at the Peterloo massacres, simply for asking for the vote. We remember those killed at Merthyr Tydfil and the 49 butchered at Newport, simply for asking for the vote. And we remember the brutality heaped upon Emmeline Pankhurst, simply for asking for the vote for women. And that is why UKIP is here, because we know the value of the lives lost to gain the simple freedoms that we have today. We believe that freedom matters, and that an individual's own body is his own, and that an Englishman's home should be his castle. It offends me that the state can arbitrarily remove these freedoms. And it offends me when the whole of the state is targeted at one man, like Nick Hogan, who sits in this audience today, a publican, who was imprisoned for 6 months, simply because he would not throw out of his pub 2 old gentlemen who had fought hard in the war to defend our freedoms by simply having a cigarette and thus breaking EU laws. Nick is the kind of person we should celebrate for defending our own interests. And it offends me when people like Andrew Simonou, who was snatched under the European arrest warrant, imprisoned for nearly 2 years in a Greek prison, and released without a stain on his character, when there was evidence in the United Kingdom to show that he had never committed that crime. But we would not look at that evidence and simply shifted him to Greece by signing a form that had lovely ticks on it. That is not freedom, that is tyranny. And UKIP is the torchbearer of liberty in this country. The Liberal Democrats may call themselves liberal, but they're anything but. They talk the talk, but we walk the walk. And that is why we oppose identity cards, the European arrest warrant and control orders. It's why we believe that no one should suffer arbitrary arrest. No Muslim boy or girl should be stopped or searched simply because of the colour of their skin or their religious belief. But we also believe that should they be convicted of a crime that they have committed, they should be properly punished and not have the Human Rights Act save them from their guilt or imprisonment. And that is why we believe that no child, boy or girl, man or woman, should be left to fall by the wayside in this country, destitute or impoverished because of the chance of birth, ill health, redundancy or unemployment. For we are a tolerant nation and look after our own. But where those offered help throw it back in our face by terrorising local neighbourhoods, never seeking to work or volunteer in those communities, or rampage our streets looting and stealing from those very same communities that have helped them, they have broken our bond, and they should face severe consequences and loss of our goodwill. And we also believe that we must not waste the valuable resources of our country on the most valuable thing of all, the lives of our servicemen, by entering into ill-thought-out conflicts. There have been 380 servicemen and women die and thousands injured and coming back wounded from Afghanistan. You cannot look at those funeral corteges that went by Wootton Bassett and not feel the heartache of the mothers and fathers and wives and sons and daughters who will no longer see the prides of their hearts, and cannot feel more proud when you see the quiet thanks of that town and the country as a whole who acknowledge our debt to them. But if we ask our soldiers to sacrifice themselves, we must ensure that they are provided with every piece of equipment needed to protect themselves. They shouldn't need to beg or steal for what they have. We must look after their families whilst they're away, celebrate them when they return, ensure they're cared for when they're injured, and educate them when they have to leave. And we must never send them unemployment by text and give their lives on a lie.
Absolutely.
UKIP, it was once said that the beating heart of freedom lies within all Englishmen's souls. Well, that beating heart is in this room today. It is strong, it is vibrant, and it lives. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, I continue working for UKIP in the City of London, pushing out our message. Early on in this year, we had a campaign that started the City of London where we issued 40,000 leaflets around all the tube stations in London, where we then followed up with a launch of our campaign of dinners to promote the party's image in the city, and where we also got huge conferences where Nigel and Marta spoke and people were busting the doors down to hear our message being heard. And that is why every single day I hear people no longer considering UKIP as a concern, but more as the party that supports our industry, our vital industry that provides £52 billion in tax, 1.1 million jobs. And that is why I'm also delighted to have on this stage today join me Janice Small, who will tell her own story of why UKIP matters and why she is here. But I would like to thank Janice for joining this team. Janice.